So it's 10 o'clock and good morning. My name is Madeline Luke and I'm a volunteer with Dakota Resource Council. And I'll serve as the coordinator for the meeting today. Just keep the trains running on time, so to speak. Thank you to the press for your interest and a big thank you for all those who have disrupted their work days to support folks here who will speak about their grave concerns regarding Riverview Farm mega dairies. We have guests from Canada as well. Water knows no boundaries, so it makes sense that people from North Dakota, Minnesota, and Manitoba all work together to save this precious resource. Here in Bismarck, state leadership and regulatory agencies make a lot of decisions that affect everyday citizens, their homes. We are here today to show you the consequences of those decisions have on your fellow citizens in the Red River Valley. Unfortunately, because of proximity to highways, labor force, and processing across the river, we fear that these two projects may just be the beginning of industrial agriculture in the Red River Valley. We'll start with our Canadian colleagues as they will need to be ready for our sister rally in front of the legislative building in Winnipeg. So I'd like to introduce Vicki Burns, who represents Save Lake Winnipeg, and James Benham, who is the executive director of Manitoba Eco Network.
Thank you, Madeline, and good morning, and thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Vicki Burns, and I'm director of the Save Lake Winnipeg project. Now, as Madeline already mentioned, and we all know, nature does not respect the political boundaries that we humans have put in place. So what happens in your state regarding water ultimately impacts our lake, just like the smoke that came from our wildfires this summer impacted your air. I'm really grateful that the Dakota Resource Council has reached out to us in Manitoba to alert us about this potential environmental hazard, which will impact thousands of Manitobans and North Dakotans. Now, I really appreciate the chance to tell you about Lake Winnipeg, in case some of you don't know. It's actually the 10th largest freshwater lake in the whole world, and it has a huge watershed, of which North Dakota, part of North Dakota, is in that watershed, which is why I'm speaking to you today. The Red River flows north from your state all the way into Lake Winnipeg, and it carries with it runoff from your cities, towns, and agricultural fields. And then as it crosses the border and goes up into the lake, it also picks up all that runoff from Manitoba lands as well. Unfortunately, that runoff contains phosphorus and nitrogen that are important elements for anything to grow. These elements, however, are both in human sewage and in animal manure. But the human sewage is treated in order to decrease the amount of phosphorus and nitrogen and other contaminants. Animal manure is not treated. It's actually applied to land to be used as fertilizer, and it is good fertilizer, but when too much is put on and the crop of that year can't use all of that phosphorus and nitrogen, then it becomes available to run off when the snow melts in the spring, during heavy rainstorms or floods. And that's what creates the big problem that we're talking about today. These nutrients of blue-green algae, those are the food the nutrients of phosphorus and nitrogen, excuse me, are the food for blue-green algae. And that is what is a very serious concern in Lake Winnipeg right now. In fact, Lake Winnipeg was designated as the threatened lake of the year over a decade ago for the entire world because of the amount of blue-green algae that's present. And much of that algae, it's not like the algae that we used to know. It contains, not all of it, but much of it contains dangerous toxins, both for humans, animals, and any life that depends on it. Now, research has informed us that we need to decrease the amount of phosphorus getting into Lake Winnipeg by at least 50%, and in order to restore the health of the lake. If these mega dairies that we're talking about today, with over 37,000 cows in tents in small space, if these go ahead, the amount of nutrients getting into Lake Winnipeg are definitely going to increase substantially. And so I'm just going to end with a plea to you and to all of my Manitoba colleagues. Together, we need to do whatever we can to prevent this from happening. We care about what's happening to all of you in North Dakota, and we definitely care about what's happening to everyone in Manitoba. Thanks again for this opportunity, and I'll hand it over to James now.
Sure. I am James Benham. I'm the Executive Director of the Manitoba Eco Network. We are, in a lot of ways, similar to the Dakota Resources Council. We're an umbrella organization. What we serve to do is to bring environmental non-governmental organizations and individual citizens together to educate them and make them aware of the ecological issues. And of course, today we're here to talk about the impact of massive intensive dairy operations on our watershed, on the Red River watershed and the Lake Winnipeg watershed. Now, I am here today as a coalition of groups, so I want to highlight that. I think that's an important aspect. We've been trying to build a coalition, a diverse and broad coalition, because we need action. We particularly need action by the state of North Dakota, but we also need to see action by both the U.S. federal government and the Canadian federal government, as I'll elaborate on, as well as our own government here at Manitoba, which we've had some communications with, and we know have written to your state government. And I just had a conversation with someone of the minister's office earlier this week where they're aren't able to give me any further announcements, but are working on some further actions behind the scenes. So I think our lobbying is already having an impact, but obviously we need a lot more work to be done. As Vicki really accurately pointed out, Lake Winnipeg is in the center of a huge inland watershed. It's the second largest watershed in Canada. Basically, here in Manitoba, we're at the bottom of a bowl that covers 4 provinces and 4 U.S. states. So what happens in North Dakota, as well as Minnesota, South Dakota, Montana, Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and here at home impacts Lake Winnipeg and impacts Manitobans. We know, as Vicki highlighted, Lake Winnipeg is in a state of crisis. Green algae blooms is a consistent and constant problem, and as Vicki pointed out, in 2013, Lake Winnipeg was designated by the Global Nature Fund as the worst, the most threatened lake in the world, and things unfortunately have not got better. There's a number of factors impacting it, but we know that 2 new proposed massive intensive dairy operations that would add 37,500 more animals on just these 2 operations alone. And to put that in context, that would essentially quadruple your herd size in North Dakota, and would be the same size as what we have across the entire province of Manitoba. And it would highlight distribution matters. Our operations tend to be much smaller and more spread out. And the reason for that is this massive concentration of liquid manure slurry that's only 1.5 miles from the Red River is a threat to local groundwater, but also our watershed here in Manitoba, and in particular Lake Winnipeg. We know that excessive nutrient loads cause eutrophication, and we know that there's also an international treaty between Canada and the United States. That's the Boundary Water Treaty of 1909. And in accordance with the Boundary Waters Treaty, there is an international joint commission, and it has been established to deal with transboundary water disputes and to provide recommendations. Now, in May of 2020, the IJC recommended the adoption of nutrient objectives at the international boundary, the Red River, where the Red River crosses the border between Canada and the United States. Those recommended targets were approved by both the US and the Canadian government. And already those nutrient concentrations and loads substantially exceed the targets that the IJC has set for nitrogen and phosphorus, which, as has already been noted, is what leads to the algal blooms. Nitrogen concentrations should be 1.15 milligrams per liter, but it is more than double that at 2.49 milligrams per liter in 2022. The most recent year that we have data. The total average annual nitrogen load is 25% over the objective. That's 12,000 tons when the objective is just over 9,000 tons. The phosphorus, which is the primary leading factor to eutrophication, and the suffocation, and the death of Lake Winnipeg, is even worse. Phosphorus concentration should be at 0.15 milligrams per liter at the Red River International Boundary, but is nearly triple that amount at 0.4 milligrams per liter. The average annual load is nearly 70% over target. That's 2,400 tons per year when the objective is 1,400. Once again, these targets have been agreed to by both the US and Canadian governments. And this only addresses the nutrients. There are numerous pathogens and other pollutants from industrial agricultural practices that will make it into our waterway. There seems little doubt that if these massive mega dairy operations are allowed to proceed, the nutrient concentrations and loads will continue to increase, threatening both local groundwater, Lake Winnipeg, and its watershed. That's why I am standing here on the legislative grounds here in Manitoba. We're going to be having a rally here in Manitoba at 11 a.m. It's a cross-border rally with a number of organizations, a diverse collection of organizations, because we know there's strength in community. We know that this issue crosses multiple jurisdictions, and we need multiple jurisdictions to act. And that's why, as an umbrella organization, we're happy to work with organizations and come together and build this coalition and hopefully stop these massive mega dairy operations, which aren't good for North Dakota, and they're definitely not good for Manitoba. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicki and James, for spending some time with us. We'll be looking forward to hearing about your rally at 11 o'clock. And now, Stephanie Marinowski will speak for her colleagues in Minnesota.
Thank you, Madeline. My name is Stephanie Marinowski, and I live in Minnesota, a mile east of the proposed Abercrombie Dairy, and represent the West Central Minnesotans for clean water. The Red River flows past Fargo, Moorhead, Grand Forks, and East Grand Forks before heading north to Canada. Think of the number of people that rely on the river for their drinking water and livelihoods. I am here today to speak to you about the threat the Riverview Farm mega dairies bring to the Red River Valley. Intensive farming, flooding, and droughts and illegal drainage already stress our river. Let's not make matters worse. In addition to the nutrients previously mentioned, pollutants specific to industrial animal operations include disease-causing bacteria and parasites, runoff containing antibiotics used to treat cows, but which are also important to human use. Large amounts of antibiotics are required for production, but the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria causes 35,000 deaths each year in the U.S. Our area relies heavily on groundwater, so depletion of the Wahpeton Buried Valley Aquifer, which Richland and Wilkin counties share, is a major concern. The added stress of an estimated 228 million gallons of annual withdrawal by the dairy is alarming. Wilkin County has been through this before. In the 1970s and 80s, Mindac contaminated the Wahpeton Buried Valley Aquifer in Wahpeton. Additional bad water was pumped out as a corrective measure, causing a drop of aquifer water level by 50 to 60 feet in Breckinridge and surrounding Wilkin County wells. Even without the dairy, the North Dakota Department of Water Resources recognizes that the Wahpeton Buried Valley Aquifer is in trouble. It stated last year, and I quote, an additional 40 feet of decline could occur without the addition of artificial recharge from the Red and Wild Rice rivers. The department is in the process of studying how to inject Red River water into the empty aquifer space. Not only would this be a huge government expenditure of taxpayer money to facilitate the unsustainable operations of a private corporation, but it means that some other community would be losing out on its senior water rights, i.e. everyone downstream on the Red. At the very minimum, the following would just make common sense. There should be robust monitoring of the ground and surface water quality and quantity. The nutrient management plan for this dairy is faulty and needs revision to prevent over-application of the nutrients. That present water resources can support both the present water users and a proposed dairy needs to be confirmed before construction begins. The dairy should be liable for damages from its operation to water quality or quantity. It appears that Riverview Farms acts to prevent environmental problems only when pressured. So I urge North Dakota state leaders to remember that their decisions don't affect just their citizens, but those of their neighbors in Minnesota and Canada. Water knows no boundaries, and we all require clean drinking water for our very existence. So thank you.
Stephanie, could you spell your name for us, please?
Yes, Stephannie. Marinowski is Miranowski.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. I will, have a copy of, written comments. If you'd like them, just email me and I'll have contact information on them as well.
I will also have my business card. If you don't have a recording of this, I can send it to you as well.
So now, we have people from Abercrombie, North Dakota. They are going to be at ground zero, in regards to this dairy. The Abercrombie Dairy is 12,500 cows. The Trail County or Herberg Dairy is 25,000 cows. So we'll be hearing from Cindy Zink, Caitlin Johnson, Eric Olson, and they'll describe, what it is like to face a company that says they want to be a good neighbor. Cindy, you're up.
Good morning. For over 50 years, my family has lived along the Red River, which is 1 mile north of the proposed dairy, in which these cows will drink over 500,000 gallons of water daily. Our well is 365 feet deep, which is our maximum depth. We became concerned when we heard how much water this large dairy would be using and contacted Southeast Water users about acquiring water from them. They could not supply us with water because of our location to their main water lines. This is also a problem for our Minnesota neighbors across the Red River. Consequently, when the aquifer is running low or depleted, we will have to move our home. Never in a million years did I think we would be fighting not only for our water rights, but for everyone using the Wahpeton Berry Valley aquifer. But here we are. When your water, our greatest resource, is threatened, you really appreciate it so much more. We really need to protect this precious resource. If North Dakota insists on having a CAFO, why not select a better location for all concerned instead of being centered with rivers on 3 sides and right on top of an aquifer? We have nothing against cows, but why should they come before our water rights? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cindy. Caitlin? Caitlin lives closest, so this will be a new neighbor for them.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Johns. Our property is about 1 mile from the proposed Abercrombie Dairy site. My fiance's family has lived on our property for 6 generations. How are we to keep our generational family farm going if we must deal with not only the lack of water, but also the air and water pollution, insects, noise, and odors from our new neighbors? By their very nature, CAFOs generate a huge amount of untreated waste that will contaminate nearby water sources. This waste contains excessive nitrates, phosphorus, pathogens such as bacteria, parasites, viruses, hormones, and antibiotics that are hazardous to both humans and the environment. Abercrombie Dairy will generate and store over 100 million gallons of untreated waste that will be spread every year on over half of our township. My children will attend school, and our family will go to church next to the manure fields. We will boat and fish on the Red River where the waste will spill into. Manure is a perfect breeding ground for flies, mosquitoes, leading to nuisance and promoting disease in nearby residential areas. Trucks constantly bringing in feed and new cows and moving with milk, manure, and newly born calves and dead cows, along with animal noises, will be our new background noise. Manure lagoons emit huge quantities of gases like ammonia and hydrogen sulfide, as well as gases causing noxious odors detectable for several miles. None of these are addressed by the Department of Environmental Quality. Health impacts reported include increased risk of acute and chronic respiratory illnesses like asthma, bronchitis, particularly among children and elderly, immunocompromised, and those with pre-existing lung and heart conditions. A higher likelihood of headaches, nausea, sore throat, burning eyes, and neurological issues. The stress of living with these disruptions decrease overall quality of life, leading to increased tension and depression. Cows can bring more infectious disease agents. Healthy appearing cows carry bacteria and parasites which cause GI illnesses in humans. Again, the young, the old, the immunosuppressed are especially vulnerable. And unfortunately, we found out from the COVID pandemic how many of our friends and neighbors are in the last category. These are just a few things that are at stake with living so closely. Community's future and our children's future be ruined by a project which is known after much study and years of research to bring so many problems. Why should we be pushed out of our homes that we have all lived in for so long? Who benefits? Where do the profits go? Certainly not to us.
Eric Olson is from Miss Abercrombie.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I'm speaking today on behalf of the citizens of Abercrombie and the surrounding communities regarding the proposed mega dairy project. Our message is simple. We are asking for transparency, accountability, and a fair process that puts the health and well-being of our people and resources first. From the beginning, this process has been marked by a lack of transparency. This is not a minor oversight. It is a failure process that undermines public trust. The pattern has continued at higher levels of government. Our community has submitted data, research, and evidence outlining the potential harm this project could bring, from environmental risks to impact on public health. Yet, the Department of Environmental Quality appeared to disregard these concerns and allow the permitting process to move forward without meaningful engagement. Despite our requests, we were never given a full public hearing to voice our concerns on the record. That is a missed opportunity for an agency to fulfill its duty of listening to the people it serves. One of the most important unanswered questions is water. North Dakota does not currently require environmental impact studies for projects classified as agriculture. But this project is not a typical farm. It is an industrial scale operation with massive demands on our aquifer. To simply call this agriculture and exempt it from deeper review is to ignore the real risks involved. Without an environmental impact study, no one can say with certainty whether there will be enough water to sustain the dairy without harming municipalities, rural water systems, and private wells that already depend on this. This is why we're here today at the Capitol. State officials have taken away from local communities. If the state is going to hold that power, then the state also has a responsibility to ensure that decisions are made openly, responsibly, and in full accordance with the North Dakota law and the Century Code. So today, we are asking three things: that the governor Number one, that the governor and state officials revisit the permits that have already been advanced for this project to ensure due process and transparency were followed at every step. Number two, that a full environmental impact study be required before any project of this magnitude is allowed to move forward. And number three, that the governor agree to a direct meeting with our community so that the voices of the people most affected can finally be heard. This is not about being against agriculture, and it is not about opposing progress. Our farmers and rural communities are the backbone of this state, and we support them. But we also know that projects of this scale must be handled with care, with accountability, and with full transparency to protect both our communities and our future generations. The people of North Dakota deserve nothing less than openness, honesty, and responsible leadership. We are here today to respectfully call. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Following this press conference, we will be presenting the petition to the governor asking for a face-to-face meeting. So you're welcome to join us there as well. Tim Leppard is a township officer from Lemoore, and he'll speak to maybe the frustration that you sense from the folks in Abercrombie. Thanks for coming, Tim.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Leppard. I serve on the Russell Township Zoning Board in Lemoore County, North Dakota. And I come here today to talk about a larger problem that is affecting the entire state of North Dakota, loss of property rights. We've seen this not only with power lines, carbon pipelines, and many other projects which corporate interests want to push. And politicians here in Bismarck are more than happy to push them. We are seeing big ag, the ethanol industry, our own utilities, all sidestepping zoning boards. I'd like to, in 2009, a grant was proposed for our area. Our township members and decided to rewrite zoning ordinances in our township because our citizens opposed it. Our members, nowadays, this would be impossible because of the erosion of our authority as township supervisors. Local control has been repeatedly stripped from us, session after session in the Capitol. In 2019, they took away our ability to charge a feeding operation for the roads they would be driving semis on. They took away our ability to impose environmental regulations beyond state law. They took away our ability to levy a license fee above $500, on which they often, are multi-million-dollar operations. They restricted our 50% setback increase option in 2025. They took away our 50% setback option outright. They've introduced bills that would pull our insurance from the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund if we brought a lawsuit against the CAFOs. That was unconstitutional, but they did change the law to make the loser of a court case pay the winner's legal fees, a move that would have a chilling effect on a township's willingness to go. Last session, Senate Bill 2208 would have cut off prairie dog funding to any local entity that opposed any energy project were at. The bill failed, but it doesn't mean I stand that are being pushed. We are pushing back. Stand for property rights in the state of North Dakota. Project is proposed, not just a rubber stamp process. Of these communities are fully in fact are treated well. We will never. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So is going to on maybe what you've heard, so.
And the chairman of DRC.
Forgot that. So.
Professor, Mary. University of North Dakota. Was contract. Dakota. Testimony. Just like ever. Welfare. My testimony involved surveying about 60 years of research conducted by rural sociologists and rural social scientists on the impacts of industrialized agriculture and community welfare. And our review of the literature was determined that agriculture has an economic. CAFOs are just one example. And there's only one part of our research dug deeper. CAFOs are often leading consequences or economic benefits like increased low. They also free environmental social divisions within the community. Impacts. There's a potential tax revenue. Areas of high unemployment. Tax revenue. An economic concentration of while CAFOs may employ much of the profit generated state corporations, reducing the economic benefits to the community. They can also result in reduced property values. CAFOs can lead to a decrease of property values for nearby residents due to odors, potential pollution, and the decline in quality of life. They also provide a strain on local infrastructure. Heavy truck traffic associated with CAFOs can put a strain on local roads and bridges, leading to increased maintenance costs. Result in increased costs for local governments to manage waste, address environmental concerns, and potentially provide additional social services. Small farm. CAFOs can make it difficult for smaller independent farms to compete, potentially leading to further consolidation and job losses in the agriculture sector. Regarding social impacts, they can lead to community conflict. CAFOs can often create conflict and division within communities due to concerns about environmental impacts, property values, and quality of life. They can result in erosion of social capital. The conflict surrounding CAFOs can weaken social bonds, trust, and interdependence within the community. They can increase health concerns. CAFOs can pose health risks to nearby residents through air and water pollution, potentially leading to respiratory problems, cardiovascular issues, and other illnesses. They can disrupt rural lifestyles. CAFOs can disrupt rural lifestyle and sense of community for those living nearby, as they may be forced to deal with odors, noise, and other environmental nuisances. They can result in reduced quality of life. The overall quality of life in communities with CAFOs can decline due to factors mentioned above, leading to a sense of unease and frustration among residents. They can result in unequal distribution of benefits and burdens. Low-income and minority communities are often disproportionately affected by CAFOs, facing greater health risks and economic hardship. They can result in political de-skilling. The process of navigating CAFO-related issues can lead to a sense of powerlessness among community members and elected officials, making it difficult to address other local concerns. They can result in threats to our democratic rights. The siting and operation of CAFOs can sometimes infringe upon the rights of local communities to control their own land and environment. All these things I mentioned, been mentioned already by the panelists that spoke today. The negative social and economic impacts of CAFOs often outweigh the perceived benefits. CAFOs can lead to a decline in overall quality of life of rural residents, erode social cohesion, create economic instability. The potential health risks and environmental damage associated with CAFOs also raise serious questions about the long-term sustainability of these operations and their impact on rural communities.
I'll open it up for questions in just a minute. Just want to explain this. Okay. So we've talked about waste and manure. These lagoons will contain about 103 million gallons of waste. The Canadians call it slurry. And in Abercrombie, and about 234 million gallons in Trail County. Procedure is that all the stalls are swept up several times a day. It's taken to an area where the moisture is pressed out and the solid, that's the stuff floating on top, is returned to the stall where the cows use it for bedding. The slurry, according to the reports, is about 3% solid, and the rest is urine, it's wastewater, whatever is in there that doesn't get into this area. The slurry goes into the lagoons, and I calculated out, I think it was the equivalent of, I think, 70 football fields in total. They're about 15 feet deep and extend above the land. The ones in Trail County, a couple of the lagoons are actually in the floodplain. So these lagoons are emptied out once a year or so, and then spread on the land. So this is what we're talking about. This is the slurry. It's not exact, it's not cow stuff, it's stuff that I made up, but I just wanted to let you know, this is what it looks like, and I'm not gonna open the lid.
So if it's not cattle, what is it made of? Because that's not really it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this top spot is dried cattle. Okay, and the rest is water and urine. And that's would be equivalent to what you would see. The urine, wastewater. Okay, and whatever isn't pressed out would go into the lagoon. The pressed material goes back into the stall to be used as bedding. Is that clear?
Yeah, I was just curious what exactly you're holding.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's dry cattle poop and urine and water.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about an approximation. And the quantities are huge. And Mary Saul actually went to Riverview's demonstration dairy, and she can tell you a little bit more about she saw there if you wish. So
Oh, sorry, Madeline, do you have more?
no, that's all I have. I'm gonna open up to Q&A for any of the people there to speak. And as I mentioned, we will be presenting the petition to the governor's office if you'd like to come along. Thank you all for coming.
What is the request of the Manitoba legislature? What is the rally for? Does Manitoba have any authority over what can happen?
Try to repeat the question.
So, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Jack Dura, the Associated Press.
Okay, so Jack asked what the authority of Manitoba has. So, the IJC, or International Joint Commission, doesn't have any strict authority. It is a treaty, however. And under the terms of the treaty, the federal government of the United States and the federal government of Canada can bring the issue to this joint commission, and the joint commission has technical people, it has lawyers, et cetera, to discuss an issue. Okay, so that is what the people in Canada are hoping, is that they're putting pressure on their provincial government and then also their federal government for Canada to bring the issue to the fore. In the past, traditionally, both sides have to bring an issue, so the United States government would have to do that as well. But there's nothing in the treaty that we have found that says it can't be a unilateral referral.
maybe this is a question for the folks from Abercrombie, but what is the stage that for the dairy? I know the DEQ had issued a permit. Have they started dirt work? Have they started working on it? Yeah.
They have not started.
Can you go to the podium?
Yeah,
Please.
that way around be the easiest.
I know we're picky, but we want to hear you.
Yep.
Yeah, picky as we are, I know.
So they have not started digging at all. They have done, 4 well site, or they've dropped down for well water and sites to measure how deep the aquifer is at that area. And then there is also a natural gas pipeline that was put in this last spring that runs right up next to the dairy as well, or what would be the site.
We are in the middle, we are planning to, there are a whole bunch of permits that have to be, gotten. So we are going to be contesting the, permit to, put in a drain. And then, because of, pressure, after the last press conference, I believe, the lagoons, which had been, previously just clay lined, 24-inch clay lined. We believe that the company has made plans to put in a double lined geosynthetic liner with leak detection, which is actually the state of the art way of managing manure. And that was because we challenged the dam. So if and when the request for water allotment goes through, there'll be challenges on that as well.
Mention the Herberg process too, where they're at with that.
So that we're here with the Abercrombie people because the community members do not want this project. The Trail County folks are, as far as we can tell, for this, they will be producing 234 million gallons of this stuff in 4 or 5 lagoons. And the permit is in front of the DEQ presently, and they have not approved it as yet.
Has anyone had conversations with the folks at Riverview?
Absolutely.
Please, don't fight. Don't fight.
Standing in line.
Mary Saul.
My name is Mary Saul, and I currently live about 1.4 miles from the proposed Herberg Dairy. We have spoken to Riverview many times. They will say that they have been in communication with us and have been open. But in fact, the whole permit for the dairy went through before we even heard from Riverview. That's the first thing I want to be clear. The second thing is that they did not come out to our community to even speak to us till after they had gone to Hillsborough and spoken about their site. Then we said, well, don't we get some information? And then they came to Abercrombie. So again, this was after the permit had already gone through. We knew nothing about it. We heard about something in Hillsborough, and then we had them come to Abercrombie in September. That's the time frame there. I think that's important to note. They also will state that they gave us 30 days to respond to their permit application or the permit itself. That was because we also got almost 300 signatures from the community stating opposition to this project. That's why we got that 30-day window. It wasn't because of their generosity.
They haven't been very
So they have not been upfront with us, and in fact, their narrative is they want to keep things quiet and they don't want to talk about it because they don't want any fuss. That is what is going through at our local water boards. That's how it goes through at our local county commissioners meetings. And we really can't understand why our county commissioners would want to devalue the property of the Richland County homeowners and the whole land for a project that is not going to bring back a cent of money or not going to bring back revenue to our state.
The processing plants are in Minnesota, they're not in North Dakota. So our state gets no revenue from this project. And we are not in a milk crisis in North Dakota. So we really are advocating for a more responsible, environmental and tax-friendly situation. They also are not gonna be taxed as an industrial business. They will be taxed as a crop of corn. So we are also not getting tax revenue. We have heard though, since we gave so much information to our county commissioners about the lack of tax revenue, that they have come forward now and decided that they will pay X amount to our county. But what's really gonna happen is that the local taxpayers, which I am one of them, will have increased taxes for infrastructure, roads, drainage ditches. One of which I will personally pay $6,000 in the next 9 years because of a drain that got put in. And that's just the start. They haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet.
Wow. Just to be clear, do you want to completely prevent this project, or are you seeking these mitigations around various aspects of it?
I would instead support our dairy farmers that have been in North Dakota for centuries. Money going towards them so that they can grow their communities and grow their dairies and sustain them instead of wiping them out of business.
So I will point out, I'm sorry, I don't think I've introduced myself to Jenny Schlechter that week, so ag is what we study all the time. There aren't many dairy, but their dairies decrease constantly. There aren't existing dairy farms in that area that are economical. So who would give money to those dairies and how would that even work?
Well, I guess that is a good question for our legislators to maybe look into before just proposing mega dairies from out of state, those of which we don't even know who the partners are. We've also asked Riverview, who are your partners, and we can't seem to get an answer. So if you could help us with that, we'd appreciate it. We do know the managing partners, though, are out of Morris, Minnesota. This is an LLP, we understand that, but it acts and walks and talks like corporate ag. So in essence, they control the narrative, they control the media, and they control the permitting of how they push the permits through. So having gone through all of that already, we are not in favor of this.
So you want to
Because
stop
you
it
can only
entirely?
Imagine. Oh, yeah, and then water from Southeast Water District too, they gave them Wahpeton, gave the CAFO 500,000 gallons, I think, of water per year that they had for future growth of Wahpeton. They gave that water to the CAFO. So it's within their Southeast Water's jurisdiction. And so it was their right to do so. But it's another process of how our resources are being like, really managed and controlled already. As was just previously stated in the previous presenter, by this CAFO, and they're not even started yet. So we're very knowledgeable of what they've done in Wilcox, Arizona. We're very well of what that environment looks like. We're very well that Wahpeton, Minnesota recently had a fire and couldn't even put their fire out at their local elevator because of lack of water. And local farmers had to come to the rescue and try to put it out. They've been there for 10 years. So we are very fearful of our future should this CAFO come in. Because our aquifer is not a big aquifer. It does not have an unlimited, supply of water.
To clarify, so you haven't talked with officials of the state of North Dakota about your concerns, and if they haven't really said anything back to you.
We have talked extensively all through the legislative process to our officials. We tried to talk to them about the extensive harm of health to community members surrounding CAFOs. We had 3 people from 3 different states ready to testify during Senate Bill 2174 on the line, ready to testify. Unfortunately, the time that was for public comment was taken up by somebody who decided to talk this slow so that nobody else could get on.
So you haven't heard back from the state officials clarifying? Any, nothing, or nothing?
We have had support from Senate officials. We had a 6-0 vote that one bill was gonna be thrown out. And on Friday and by Monday, the vote reversed back and it was unanimously stopped. Mysteriously. Sam, can you
I can-
clarify that?
I can take a little bit of clarification on this. Sam Wagner, field organizer for Dakota Resource Council. So with the bill, what happened was in 2023, they passed a bill that put together a model zoning committee. That was with the stated goal of basically codifying state law for all townships into a simple, clear, concise measure. So they had roughly 14 representatives from all industries, Farmers Union, Farm Bureau, the Pork Grower or the Pork Association, the Dairy Association, the Township Association, the County Association, with the caveat that at least one of the representatives from the township and the county organization are farmers. Tribal councils, the Department of Health or the DEQ, the state's attorney, and at least one county planner. And with that, they met at the Capitol up in the Department of Agriculture for about a year. During that time, we regularly attended their meetings as DRC, and we had provided feedback. It was chaired by the Agricultural Commissioner, so we did have one-on-one time with them. On other occasions, we have met with multiple representatives across the state in both the ag committees in the Senate and the House. And we have sent out emails to them and mass emails to the members of our delegations in regard to this. We have seen positive reinforcement. We have seen negative reinforcement from them. We have had multiple District 25 representatives, which is the district in Ransom County. Larry Lewick, Cindy Schreiber-Beck, and Alyssa Metzcog have all been at our meetings and have heard our issues with this. So we have had robust conversations with many of the members of the state, local, and federal government. We've also had multiple county commissioners from Richland County at our meeting, both opposed and for the project. And so when I say that we have done our homework and communicated as well as we can with these individuals, yes, we have reached out to them. What their response is, though, has been obviously mixed. You know, some people full-throatedly supporting us, some people neutral or not understanding what we were talking about, and finally the people that outright oppose us. So I hope that answers the question. But to talk about the 6-0 vote, there was in SB 2174. It was an agricultural bill that was born out of the Model Zoning Committee, and what it was going to do, the Senate committee decided early that they had taken enough control away from the officials, and they wanted to from the local officials, and they wanted to basically they wanted to let things play out. They said we've done everything to help animal agriculture in the 2023 session with the package of bills that was passed with that, and we just want to leave it be and see how this plays out. However, what happened was Republican Majority Whip, and don't quote me if I get this wrong, it's Senator Klein from District 10, I believe, the Kidder County Steel Rugby District. He then basically requested that it would be he requested that the Ag Committee reconsider their vote. And because Senator Thomas, the sponsor of the bill, claimed that he had amendments that would fix the issue. And he got a second from Senator Roars from District 27, I believe. And that was enough to kick it back to the committee. Thomas produced some amendments that would take away increased setbacks. And apparently that was good enough for the majority Republican, or the majority of Republicans in the Senate to okay it. After the bill had been amended, after that, we had a hearing at the House, and the House proposed no changes for it because the bill ultimately was a compromise of a compromise of a compromise. So they said that it was watered down to the point where you couldn't really water it down anymore. And that is the bill that we had. If Madeline wanted to add anything to it,
So that's
I-
a local, they're trying to return
Yeah,
some local
yes.
control, and then they watered that down to the point that they failed it.
But the end result with this was that, the mile setback for CAFOs of 5,000 animal units is a mile. So anything above 5,000 animal units, it's a mile. So 12,500 cows, it's a mile.
Yeah, Doug Gordon hasn't brought, has he said it?
Well, Doug Goring had an editorial in the Fargo Forum after our press conference in Fargo. And basically, he tried to reassure Canada that North Dakota was a good partner. And he basically called these guys fearmongers and disingenuous. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have been going to these sessions for a few times, and my impression is that Goring and powers in the state, and I'm not and former Governor Burgum were 200% for getting animal agriculture in the state. They were upset that we are nowhere near the top 10. And that was because of the anti-corporate farm law. And that's why last session, Governor Burgum actually showed up in the legislative mission hearing to push forward. 2020, yeah, the last one, previous, not this one, one before. So, and I think your question is a good one. What else could this look like? Because it's got to be an alternative, I think. And I think that processing is an issue. We don't have any place for independent farmers or dairymen to sell their product. It's hard to get to scale of these large dairies. And of course, scale is important. And then also getting people to go into the business is hard.
Yeah.
Given, there's no question about it. But if there were people who are willing to go, and I think you see maybe a little bit of Gen X or whatever, people wanting to return to the land, they can't get in because of access to credit and access to markets. So in Manitoba, there are about 40,000 cows. The mean size of the herd's about 200. So it's spread out throughout the province. And is there an alternative model that would work? And I'm not a farmer, okay? I understand a little bit about markets and the vagaries of the milk check. It's really confusing. Sure, it's great. But is this the only way to have to go down the route of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa?
On that note, Madeline, I just want to put a fine point on this to be clear. Do you outright oppose these proposed dairies, or do you want to get them improved to answer your concerns?
Speaking for myself, okay, not for Abercrombie, not for DRC or anybody else. Yes, it's location. It's, I've been reviewing these permits for about 3 years now, or I have no life, okay? I look at a lot of these permits, and some of them are like, not so bad. Some of them are dreadful. This is the worst, okay? So when the DEQ says, yeah, you can put 1.75 of a mile from Devil's Lake, that doesn't make any sense to me, you know, because things happen and then, you know, you're polluting, you know, the biggest lake we have in the state for tourism and fishing. And of course, Devil's Lake is actively pouring down bad water in Valley City, which is where I'm from. The last thing we need is more stuff on top of what they're saying. But that was an example of a really to put a to it's our
Sites are just Abercrombie
so Abercrombie from a water point of view, I think is absolutely worst because they're on top of an aquifer. Okay, if you look at the map, I've got it right there. It's between the Red River and the and the Wild Rice River and the Antelope Creek all runs through there. If you look at the aerial photos, there are ditches, drains, little creeks everywhere. So to get in there, you're gonna have to like, you know, and then of course, if you put your manure on and it rains, it's gonna go right into your water body and then it's gonna go in a lot of this is tiled and that goes right into the Red River. So from a runoff point of view, it's kind of a disaster because there's so much water around. From a water access point of view, it's bad because Wahpeton Berry Valley Aquifer supplies these folks and it's not an infinite supply, it's already under pressure. And then we have hired hydrologists and we have hired professional engineers. We have hired agronomists to look at the DEQ data. And they find fault with the process, you know, that and I was a farmer and I went through the nutrient management plan, which is how we try to keep excess nutrients out of the water. And honest to goodness, we could not make sense of it. And when we sent it to an agronomist with the right degree, she couldn't make sense of it either. So technically, it's a problem. So location. This is a bad location. Okay. Trail County, they're not on top of a superficial aquifer. And they have not so much tile drainage, but they're tiled. They have a lot of surface drainage, and that will all go into the Red River. And of course, the number 25,000. I mean, that's was it 234 million gallons of stuff in lagoons, and a couple of them, or at least one or two, I think, are in the floodplain. And this is just a disaster. You don't want to put it next to the Red River, I think.
You mentioned also that you haven't had folks like these from Trail County coming. Do you think part of that is just because they actually did reach out to the folks in Hillsborough and have meetings?
Sam and I went up to Trail County for their open house, and it was a masterful open house. I mean, it was corporations at their best, you know. People in uniforms, you know, people very friendly, refreshments, really nice boards. Okay, and they took us around. One guy was trying to wander around on his own. He was escorted. I felt like I was back in Russia. But anyway, and they did, you know, they told us what was going on. And they said, well, you know, I think that this is a corporation that's going to try to do things by the book. And they do. Okay. And then I think Sam was down in Abercrombie and he ran across Caitlin. And that's how I and Caitlin talked with her neighbors. And that's how this issue started. So the permit that Mary mentioned was the zoning permit from the township. And that went through in, I think, January or February of 2024, before anybody knew about anything. In fact, it was Jeff Beach from the Monitor who wrote the story about the Abercrombie, and that was in the summer. Nobody knew nothing, literally.
And not in our township minutes either.
And not in your township. So they've broken a whole bunch of sunshine laws. But, you know, because the way, because of, you know, the rules, if you don't catch it, you lost your window of opportunity. Okay. What was the original question? I'm sorry.
You answered it, just why we're seeing more folks from Abercrombie and not nobody here from Trail.
I know. So when they, when they put these permits out, they put out a 12-page fact sheet. Which gives you kind of the bare bones. And then if you really want to know what's going on, then you have to file a request of information, and then you get 1,300 pages plus. And the permit period is 1 month. And I'm sorry, I can't read that fast. So these guys got together, they got really well organized, and they petitioned for a month extension. And they also petitioned for a public hearing. We got 2 weeks, which was great, because that allowed us to hire a hydrologist, a geohydrologist, and also we were able to find a lawyer who helped us write the comments, because they don't pay attention to you unless you have a lawyer. And so we got the extra time to do that, so it looked semi-okay. I think we got the nuts and bolts in. But in reviewing the information I got from the DEQ, DEQ pointedly asked for review, are you planning to have an open house in Abercrombie? And then said, nope, just post it. We're not gonna do one. That's it. So they did. And that's, and the public hearing, the public open house that they had was only after fuss was made. And then the DEQ declined to have an official public hearings because, we gave you the extra 2 weeks already. Plus, the Riverview did have an open house. Sorry, open house is not an official public. Okay. Sorry. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, just one more. So I was kind of curious, like, how would you explain to people who say that these farms like create jobs and that the risks really outweigh the risks really outweigh the benefits? I mean, I guess like, essentially with our, that has been like something that's been said.
First of all, we probably maybe provide 1 or 2 jobs per cable for each community they come in. And the 40 jobs that they have in the barn are staffed by foreigners with work visas. And we're also, I don't know for sure their wage that they get, but I know they're supposed to come in like as a vet tech and be given vet like jobs, but they have stated to us that they are just basic barn workers. Not getting the kind of work that they thought they would get when they came here. So they do not provide jobs for the community, and I think that's what we all expected, and maybe some communities really want. I think Hillsborough wants to grow, and so what they also need is an osmosis plant. And so I talked to a representative from Hillsborough, and he said that, well, they're going to help us pay for our osmosis plant. And I said, well, is that going to be upstream or downstream from the dairy? So the clean water is for the dairy, not for the people. So you need to look into a lot of that. Some of those things get said and spoken, and the real bottom line is always that the dairy is going to make money. And what is disheartening for all of us is that they will do it at the cost of the community. They will put the tax burden on the residents of that community. And it's not going to help except maybe a few community members in the South Red River Valley. It'll help a few farmers, yes, but it is certainly not going to help the community.
Eric, did you want to check on that at all? Looks like you're not. So I'm just gonna drop this on you, and I don't know what to make of it yet, but Cindy, bless her heart, was going through Wahpeton City Commission meetings, and it looks like on July 1st, they resolved to put out a $30 million bond in the city of Wahpeton, and the purpose of this was to help pay for manure management for the plant. So we're going through we just found this out 2 days ago, and we're going through the ins and outs of exactly what the resolution says. $30 million, I think, is a big number for a town size of Wahpeton. Where's the discussion, you know? Why is this being done? Is this a good idea? What are people on the hook for? I mean, these are big decisions for this area involving a lot of money, but also big decisions involving land and water, which once you screw it up, it's really hard to bring it back. And there's not a lot of discussion. And in terms of like the sunshine laws, I don't know if they posted any. And the other thing is that, and this is something that is a difficulty in any rural community, you have a certain number of people, X number of people who are around, not so many. And then you have X number of positions, so people wear multiple hats. And then the question of conflict of interest always comes into question. So how many people of the boards of, you know, water boards, zoning commissions, et cetera, do any of them have conflict of interest in regards to a project like this? And we can't find out who the investors are, we can't find out who the partners are. So that's always a question, you know, who's pulling the strings and who's benefiting. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for coming. We're heading over to the governor's office pretty quick. If you need names, written stuff like that, just contact me.
Can I add just one more comment? Nothing in their permit makes them liable to us for water, contamination of our water, anything.